It's now 8 o'clock. We'll start this August 4th Whitley County Council meeting with honoring our country with the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. The first item on our agenda is DJ Sigler for an additional appropriations request.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a continuation of my request to allocate federal incentive monies for incentive bonuses for my 40 caseworkers. When last we were together, I think the general feeling was that everybody was supportive. However, we did need to amend the salary ordinance, and that's what you'll find in your packet today to accomplish that goal. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I feel like we've vetted it specifically well the last time, but if anybody has additional questions, I'm happy to answer.
And just to confirm, this bonus, you would request it annually. This does not change their salary.
It does not change their salary. This is completely at my discretion, and I have indicated to them that it's not a certain deal. I expect to see the same level of performance, and I'll get it because these are really dedicated ladies. But I've told them that we're going to reevaluate each and every year to see if it's feasible.
Make a motion, we approve the request for amendment on the salary ordinance and also the additional appropriation resolution and ordinance.
Yeah, you got two things there together.
Second those motions.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I would like to publicly announce or make a comment that I have not only abstained from any conversation for or against this issue, but I will also be abstaining on this issue as we go to a vote.
Very well.
For a potential conflict of interest, for a potential perceived conflict of interest.
Very well. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. And oppose the same.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next up, Judge Fahl.
Good morning. Thanks for hearing this morning. I'm here basically based on an oversight pretty much from my last year's budget, but I'm really glad it happened because it gives me a chance to tell you a little bit about this program. When I first took the bench, I wanted to find a different way to do family law cases. I didn't think going in front of a judge and having people tell me about how horrible the other person was for an hour or 2 hours or 2 days, and then make a decision and then tell them they have to get along for the next 18 years was a good way to handle family law. So we really started pushing mediation. It's now actually in our local rules. So the parties, when they come in and they have a family law case, we have them sit down with the trained mediator and work towards an agreement that they can both live with. And the research and my personal experience is that once those folks do that and they go through that process, there's much more likely to cooperate in the future. They're much more likely to follow the agreement that they come up with if they work together to mediate it rather than just have a judge tell them what to do. And that works well in most cases because folks can afford to hire they hire their own attorney, but then they have to pay for a third attorney to mediate the cases. And that, if you have the means to do that, that's great. But a lot of folks don't. A lot of folks come to us now that are self-represented. They don't have enough money for their own attorney, much less to hire a third attorney or another attorney to do mediation. So what we found is that wasn't working well. So about 5 years ago now, I think it was 2015, I petitioned the Supreme Court to create an alternative dispute resolution program. Basically a modest means mediation is what we call it. And what we did was we applied for a grant, and we got a grant of $5,000. And then now for every divorce that's filed in Whitley County, there's an additional $20 that's added to that. And what that does is that goes into this modest means mediation fund. And then I have local attorneys who have agreed to do mediations at a reduced rate. So So a normal attorney may charge up to $200 or more an hour. They charge the county, or charge me, $100, and they promise it'll never go over 5 hours, which I've only had one go 5 hours the whole time. Most of them get it done in an hour or two. And what that does is it really helps us get those self-represented folks to a point where they can agree on something. The mediator prepares the documents, so the documents are all in order. I get a lot of folks that get on the internet, and they submit stuff to me, and it's just all messed up, and then I have to kick it back, and they get mad and think that we're just not trying to help them. When in reality, there's certain things that have to happen, the law requires it. So, I had a mediation this year, and I submitted a claim, and Jana said, "Judge, you don't have any money in there." And I said, "Jana, you're always right." And I had forgotten to ask that money be appropriated from that fund to my account. So what I'm doing today is asking you to take money that's accumulated in that fund, put it into my account, so then I can pay that mediator. I hope that kind of explains the situation. I made sure I did it in this year's budget, and, but I just, it was an oversight last year. I forgot to ask that appropriation be made when I submitted my budget. And so I'm here today asking that we take money from that fund and put it in my budget so I can pay that mediator.
That fund will still have a balance after you take that $5,000 out?
I believe so. I consulted with Jan, and they'll still have a balance, yes. And if whatever we don't use at the end of the year actually reverts back to the general fund, if that's, if I recall that right. Is that correct, Jana? Can you help me with that? I don't remember exactly.
Because we're putting in, he'll go back into the alternative dispute.
Okay, yeah, it
Cash
goes back
balance,
into
yeah.
that fund for the next year.
Okay.
And so, so we always have monies in that fund, and we keep an eye on that.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And so far, we've not gone over it, but we try really hard to, well, first of all, we have to go through a screening process. You have to demonstrate that you don't have the means to pay for your own mediator. If somebody comes in and both parties are making $25 an hour, we're not gonna give them this program. And then they also have to pay up to a copay of $25. And in my experience, even that small amount gets them invested in the process. Quite frankly, if it were free, they wouldn't take it seriously. That's just been my experience with waivers and things of that nature. So, sorry, Bill, I kind of went way over your question, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Move we approve the request.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. And opposed, the same, and that motion passes.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Dale?
Good morning, Dale Buuck with the EDC. Got a couple of guests today. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the request for real and personal property tax abatement. Ag Plus has, again, I'll pull it up here on the screen, a pretty substantial project that they are considering, and they're asking for consideration of tax abatement for that project to assist in it. It's a very decent ag project with, we don't get involved in too many of them. So this is the site, on 9, just before we get to 14. And before we talk too much more about it, Mr. Mize with Ag Plus is here to kind of describe a little bit about the project, what the building will look like, and what will be done inside of it, and talk a little bit also about the key it is to not only our local ag industry, but how the products will be sold throughout the region. So I'll let Mr. Mize talk about the project a little bit.
Okay, good morning.
Good
Good morning.
We're talking about building a $5.4 million dry storage and blending facility. It's a manufacturer of crop nutrient products, and I can kind of show you a little bit about what that building's gonna look like. It's 194 feet long, it's 190 feet wide. It'll store up to roughly 10,570 ton of product for us. It'll blend product in roughly 24 ton in every, under 9 minutes. So, I mean, we're talking about pushing a lot of product. We're actually in the process of right now pricing a bag bagging structure for it. We haven't decided if we're gonna do that, but we listed on there the real property and the personal property. You know, it's pretty significant to us. It's about roughly, I forget the numbers, but it's about 1.5 million in equipment and about 3.2 or 4 or something like that in buildings and structures. This facility, I mean, we're talking about our Briggs facility, which is straight down State Road 9, just on the south side of tracks, just north of 14. We came to you a few years ago on the liquid storage facility and the bulk chemical structure, and went through that process with that facility also. Questions might be able to answer on it, or
So you're thinking about putting in a bag facility too,
in the future.
in the future? So
Yeah.
that's a possibility that could be more employees then?
That could be more employees,
Okay.
yes.
Will most of the product come in on rail, or is it gonna come in on truck, or a little bit of both? Both.
Both. Most of your potash will come in on rail, most of the MAP and other products will come off the river in Cincinnati area. And that's where we pull products today. This will add 2 new employees to that facility. It's set up to, all our trucks will pull out of there, and third-party tons will come through there also.
What's your likelihood of doing the project without the approval?
It's going to, what this does, it allows us a little bit of leniency on our tax side of it. We've got a 10-year payoff on this building, just kind of helps with the payoff.
We made tax abatements, 10-year tax abatements for a variety of industries, some that are in the county and some that weren't. This is the first opportunity that I remember of doing something for our ag community, which is a big part of their economy. And even with the tax abatement, we're still gonna benefit roughly half the taxes, and it's gonna do a lot for Washington Township's tax rate too, I would think. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Guys, we've been in Whitley County since 1912. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So just to reiterate that some of the numbers, what I put in the cost benefit analysis is 3.8 in a new building that will then, add to the tax basis in Washington Township, as well as about 1.8 million that's in the equipment and the packaging and the mixing equipment, and also some IT equipment. And so what you can see from the memo, the net benefit to the county over the years is around, it's over $500,000 in new taxes that will be generated over this 10 years.
Is there going to be a reflection of anywhere of a tax income loss because of another location bringing services to this location? Is there going to be a plus and minus on that?
That wasn't calculated in that, no.
What is there?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything moving to this facility that's currently located someplace else in the county that's,
No.
this would affect the tax base?
Inventory.
But there's no tax on inventories.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the 10-year tax abatement.
I have a motion and a second. There is a resolution number, that's 2020-05.
Mr. President, since I'm an employee of Ag Plus, I abstain from a vote.
Noted. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. And opposed, the same. I have 1 abstention.
Thank you. I know there was a question on the Gator case, CF1, which I have been working with their head of HR. She was going to be here today, except today's the big day out there for open enrollment that she's handling. Hopefully everybody saw my notes on the kind of the employment questions and how we kind of work through that. So I have Mr. Troy Weimer here from Gator Cases, and I just would like him to discuss a little bit about what's going on in Gator Cases, how they're doing, and maybe just a little bit of the challenges they've had with getting some of their temporary employees on the direct and kind of that process. So if it'd be okay, I just
Yeah, please do, absolutely.
And if you have any specific questions or issues, just let me know. But so Gator, we've been doing quite well. You know, we've been in Columbia City now for I think 5-6 years. We've grown about 15% a year. Obviously, we grow Sweetwater because Sweetwater is our #1 customer, as we're in the music, pro audio, trade show, those industries. Now, to give you an idea of our business as far as the employment, my operation in December 16th, the payroll, we had 67 employees. We got quite a few less than that now. We're down to 45 employees. You know, sales-wise, we're down year-to-date about 20%. We're down 41% just in Q2. So that shows you what COVID has done to us. It's been pretty detrimental. So that might be one of the things you see on employees. The other thing that happens is we switched over a couple years ago, and we don't hire anybody ourselves direct to start with. So we go through employment agencies locally to help us do our recruiting, and then they go through a 90-day probationary period. And we don't hire anyone in under a temporary basis. We bring everybody in through the employment agencies with the plan that once they get through probation, at 90 days they turn over into a Gator employee. So we do that just because we have one HR person, and it's pretty tough for her to do all the recruiting, and you know, especially with the turnover that people see these days. So I think when some of the numbers got turned in by our group from her and our group in Tampa, whereas our headquarters and all the financial groups that might have been skewed in the numbers that we saw. They might not have included all those up front. I think Tanya's got that corrected now for you. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'll be honest with you, we don't see ourselves getting back up to those 67 people probably until after the first of the year, because of the fact that Gator Cases making cases for the music industry with no concerts going on. There's no marching band programs going on right now. The schools are losing some funding due to the issues they've got with not going back to school. You got people homeschooling, so their numbers are down. So they're not purchasing new cases for the band. And the trade shows are non-existent now. That's all going to be online. So we do a lot of cases for the trade show industry, those type of things. So until this COVID thing, for all of us, goes away, we're going to struggle a bit getting back up to 2019 numbers, to be honest with you. So we're maintaining. We furloughed. At one point, we were up to about 40% of our people furloughed. We're now down to, we've got that back up. We've added some people over the last month and a half, so we're up to about 25-27% people on furlough. We took pay cuts through the leadership team, management team. We're putting those back in place this month. That's where we're at.
We appreciate the update.
Sure.
Any questions?
How many of your employees that come in and they're there for 90 days, is every one of those being transferred to a full-time employee?
That is our goal. They all don't, because some of them leave before they leave on their own before they get to there.
But everybody that gets to 90 days,
If they get to 90 days, they're a Gator employee on the 91st day,
without exception.
without exception. We cut a few through the probationary period, of course, just because of issues that come up. But most of the time, if they don't make it there, now I would say 80% of the time it's because they've just, you know, we got quite a transient workforce these days. You know, they like to go through the system, try out jobs, and so our turnover, you know, can be quite high.
What do you consider your probationary period, that 90 days?
90 days.
And that's what most
Probably.
employment agencies ask for. They either ask for 90 or you can negotiate down to 60. But most of them are at 90 days.
The ones that just really don't work out, you're probably weeding them out, or they weed themselves out far
They
before
usually
the
weed
90
themselves
days.
out. A few of them we have to weed out.
What's your hourly rate for your probationary, and then how does that change when they become Gator
Sure,
employees?
so our lowest rates, we have a kind of a different rates for different job classifications. So our unskilled first day through the probation period is $12 an hour. For unskilled, for our rotational molding, it's $13. For our DC, it's $13.50. And then once they hit the 90 days, then they get a half a dollar increase, and then by the end of the first year, they're up to at least $1 or more over what they started. So it's pretty,
Thank you.
we front loaded that kind of for a reason to keep, because if we feel like we keep people for a year, we can keep them for a lot longer now.
Thanks, Troy. And so.
Thanks.
The original, CF1 had an employment of 45 on December 31st as opposed to an estimate of 60. But it also showed a number of like 33, which was, as he said, the folks in Florida put those people in that probationary period. Again, remember, this is as of December 31st, when pre-COVID, pre-world going crazy. On the CF1, I do believe, they were in compliance at that time, but I understand why there was confusion over that, so that's why I wanted to come in here. The other thing I did want to let council know is that there's a fair amount of discrepancies and a little bit of leeway on that CF1 form. It's kind of confusing. We've had this issue as well with some companies in Columbia City County Council. So what I'm gonna do is work with all the treasurers, and Jan and I are gonna work together that when we send out a reminder when these are due on May 15th of next year, I'm gonna mail one to everybody with a sample form of how to fill it out, what number goes where, and what doesn't go there. Because it's not fair for you to have to approve something that it's not consistent from one company to the other. So, and then give ourselves more time to review it or bring folks in like Mr. Weimer here if you have additional questions. So I thank you very much for your patience and for considering the cases. Absolutely, we appreciate it.
And one thing, just to, if I could just clarify that for a second, the down to 45 people was actually, this was completed by Drew, our financial controller, on 5/1. So that was as of 5/1. So again, back to 12/16, I went back to that payroll, and that was 67. So that's, the impact of after COVID on March.
But again, I wanna help people so it's consistent, people know what number they're putting in where, and everybody does it the same way. So thank you.
I sent an email to the rest of the council just kind of explaining what had happened. Gator cases was the one that I was least concerned about, but there were 3 that I declined to sign because I felt that they weren't in compliance, and I thought that it would be most appropriate for me to come back to council and say, here's where we are. Would you like for me to go ahead and approve the abatement to go through for 2021? So after hearing from Mr. Weimer, is there any apprehension for me to sign the Form 1 for Gator cases?
I'd say you'd be fine.
Great. Just there. The other 2, are they both here? The other 2 Form 1s that I declined to sign were from Coupled Products. And as I went through the form, I just started looking at what was estimated on their SB1 when they came and requested their tax abatement. And the numbers that were estimated versus actual were very different. And so I'm happy to let you guys review those. What's this stack right here?
I think that's the big one that you were.
They're both advanced material.
Yep, I think they're pretty much the same.
So did you get in contact with the other two companies that are out of compliance? Did they have any reason or?
Couple products, they're just, they have been for a couple of years, have just not been the company that they were, so they're just simply out of compliance.
Okay.
And they are actually, looking to sell the building they're in, and, so there's nothing to explain, they're out of compliance.
Okay.
And then I thought with advanced materials, I think they simply filled that form out incorrectly, and they didn't understand, so,
Have they got back in contact with you?
they've
and-
gotten back in
Okay.
contact with me, so I'm comfortable with.
You're good with them then? Okay.
I think you guys also received these Form 1s in email from Jana. So I guess personally, I feel that, knowing that a couple products has been out of compliance for several years, I don't feel comfortable with extending into 2021. So, that was probably the main reason why I didn't sign it. It seemed like they were grossly out of compliance. I just didn't feel comfortable signing it. So we're not gonna move forward with that one. And then, hearing you, it sounds like with advanced materials, it just sounds like maybe they don't understand how to fill out the form.
They don't understand, no.
And they could potentially use contingent workforce as well, right? I mean, they might be using staffing
That's exactly right.
companies where they're not including them on this form. And did we have that conversation? Did we ask, like, what their real numbers would be if we included?
I didn't specifically ask, but they were one, I specifically told I might actually sit down with them and tell their person how to fill it out, not just the form.
Yeah.
I think they were still, at the end of the day, there were still just a couple employees under what the estimate was.
Yeah, and originally, when I reviewed the form, they were blank. I didn't have anything to go off of what was estimated versus what was actual. So I think this one here is the numbers that you received. It's,
Yeah, I believe that's the one that Dale wrote in
yeah.
for them. Yep, and this is just another copy.
So I didn't have anything to go off of, what was estimated versus what was actual. So the current number of employees, what they had estimated was 41 and their actual is 60. So they're doing better. Their salaries, is a little bit, higher than what they had estimated. So it appears that they're in compliance. Do you agree, Dale?
Yes, I do.
So I feel comfortable signing now, but when I first reviewed this, I just didn't feel comfortable signing. So any issues with me signing this one?
And again, next year, we'll kind of vet some of these ahead of time, and if there are issues, so we won't be coming to you, in a rush or at the last minute.
Right. Yeah, my thought on it was, they should definitely be like ready to sign when I receive them. Somebody should review them, make sure that everything is correct, and maybe engage with the corporation to ask questions, and then send them to council. It won't be me signing next year, but,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. And then, there's a stack of Form 1s that came in late that I just received from Jana just now. So I'll go through them. Any issues with me signing them, even though they came in late, if they're in compliance? And if not, we can,
Well, are they in compliance by coming in late? Is there a penalty phase for not having them turned in time? So why do we have a deadline?
Well, I think you guys can choose it because they're late. You can choose not to sign or approve it. That would be their penalty, is not getting the abatement.
and I understand that we could just stop giving them an abatement for 1 year. If the terms were 10 years, and come like the fourth year, they're not in compliance, then we can say, okay, you're not gonna get your abatement in the fifth year, but then if you come back into compliance, then starting on the sixth year, we'll phase it back in. Is that right, Dale?
That's correct.
Yeah. I'll do this after the meeting. Is that okay for you? Any other questions for Dale? I really do appreciate you coming in and explaining, telling us a little bit about Gator cases. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Next item on the agenda is Mary Hartman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here before you because you did just select a board member for me, and I thought I'd bring you a slate of our current officers so you know who's on our board right now.
Thank you.
If I can get these. You should have been given, I believe, maybe 5 or 6 applications of people interested, which I found really encouraging. I was really glad to see that. So, the only thing I want to mention to you is Tony Gatton is the person that will be leaving. He is a Thorn Creek Township resident. Majority of our board is from Columbia Township or Columbia City. So if that's a consideration for you, we do have one of the applicants that is from Thorn Creek Township. But other than that, I think they're all very good applicants. I think you have a tough decision. Do you have any questions of me?
Do you have, go ahead. Do you have a recommendation on which one you would prefer?
I knew you guys were gonna do that. Honestly, I think all of them, I think they're all, any one of them would be fine.
Has any of them been on the board in the past?
No, I haven't. I mean, a few things, Leslie, of course, is our insurance person, so she would have to abstain from some votes. Trying to think if there's any other ones that. No, Kay was a thrill when she sent her application in. I honestly, I think all of them would be fine board members. Yeah.
Is there anything in your bylaws that stipulates that they need to be diverse from different areas of the county, or is that just a secondary thought?
Okay, so our service area is Columbia Township, Thorn Creek Township, and Columbia City, and they have to be a resident of our service area.
But they don't need to be diversified. You not necessarily need somebody from every area or 2 people from every
No,
area.
that's not specified.
Those are the entities that pay the tax on it, the library, Thorn Creek, Columbia City, actually supports the library.
I
So
see,
that's where they ought to come from.
I see that one of the candidates has some graduate classes in library science. Just very honestly, would you see that as a hindrance or a help? Because sometimes board members can interfere procedurally.
I've never had that be an issue for me, so I don't think it would.
Ballot with everybody writing down who they think and see how that consensus comes out. Suggestion.
I have a great recommendation from Councilman Hodges on a good way to tackle this by secret ballot, essentially, like writing down who you might like to see, and then maybe we can pass all those down and see who gets the most votes.
If there's a consensus or a vast majority,
Yeah.
and if not, we could then narrow it down to those that have the most votes.
Yeah.
I support that process.
Is there a time element to this election?
Yes, actually, the new person would start the second Wednesday in September, so.
So you would like a decision today?
Yes, please.
How do people become aware of that, nobody?
What I have done in the past, is I actually contact, I think I talked to Chad and asked if he wanted me to, actually have an ad on our website and in the paper. And I do that for commissioners and for council. The school board has always appointed someone without doing that.
Kind of a toughie. Some of them I know, some I don't, but there's some good people on there.
I agree. I think it says a lot about the community that so many people of such high caliber are willing to serve on the library board.
You had this many apply in the past.
Well, actually, we had a total of 7 applicants this year. One of them had to decline, and then, no, this is the most we've ever had.
There's a ballot. Here's some ballots for you guys. Thank you.
I'm excited about reading this. Mary provided the public countywide survey on the libraries and had asked if council would be interested in reviewing it. Do you want to talk real quickly about what exactly the survey entailed?
Sure, so what had happened was there was an awareness to funding, it's a national survey that was done by the American Library Association. And the findings were interesting, but I thought this is for populations of 300,000 plus. I wanna know, actually a reflection or a mirror of what our community would like because we're smaller. So with that, I was able to get some assistance from Donna Holland, who's with with Purdue University here in Fort Wayne. And we were able to devise our own much smaller scale survey. And it was kind of a blind survey. All the townships in the county were able to participate. And that report that he has is a result of those findings. I do have to say that we had hoped to get about 336 people to respond out of 1,000. We received about 131. So it's a much smaller amount of people that we had hoped would participate. But I still felt that the information was worthy of your attention, and so I gave Chad a copy of that.
Is
Well,
that
thank you.
information available digitally?
I can probably make it that way.
Well,
So-
if that's gonna be work, I'll just
Oh, it's not
borrow
huge.
the copies.
But, no, I can also get you, more copies. I've got maybe 10 more copies in my office. So I can drop it off here if you'd like, or.
Would be nice to
Okay.
look at and pass around.
Sure.
So we have 5 for Carmen Jagger.
Okay,
So it looks like Carmen.
okay, thank you so much.
It was easier than we thought.
There you go, thanks again.
Next up is the commissioner report.
Thank you. I'd like to yield the floor to Becky Solway from Woodlands at this time.
Sure.
This came up in the last 24 hours. That's
Yeah,
why
sure.
I hit you blind, and I apologize for that.
Hi, as
Hi.
you know, I'm Becky Salway, and I'm the director at the County Council on Aging. And the whole funding process for this upcoming, for the remainder of 2020 and into 2021 has changed dramatically over the next couple of months in terms of our transit grant from NDOT. At the end of July, the end of June, 1st of July, our federal funds for the transit program were pulled, and we needed to write a new grant. So what they did, I'm trying to do it for you in a nutshell, what they did was they discontinued the federal loan, or the grant funds, and they switched over to the CARES Act grant. And then instead of a 12-year grant cycle, it was an 18-month grant cycle. Pardon?
12-year, but you meant 12 months, right? 12
Sorry,
months. Yeah.
12-month, it went to an 18-month grant cycle. So that created a lot of change, and you can imagine what that was like in my office there in the end of May and the first part of June to rewrite the entire grant for an 18-month period. We were notified that the TMTF funds, which are state funds, would also be affected. And they did cut those by almost 15%. We were just notified of that change. I got an email on the 13th of July that said that they thought there'd be a 15% cut, and then about a week ago, they said, yeah, we're gonna cut your PMTF, which are state funds, by $11,000. This is very significant for us in that, also along with the change from the federal NDOT funds to the CARES Act grant funds, anything we collect for transit in terms of fares or contract fees either comes off the bottom of the grant or has to be reserved for 2023. So any of those funds that are generated as a result of our transit program have to be pushed back into 2020, or that those funds come directly off the bottom, first cut off the top of the grant. The transit program supports the majority of the entire agency. That's our revenue, are the fares. So we're not going to have fares until at least January 1 of 2021, and then we'll kind of see, even if we charge those fares beginning in January, they have to go into a reserve account and again cannot be touched until 2020. So a $10,000 or $11,000 decline in our PMTF funds really impacts us in a major way. Knowing that the commissioners were getting ready to finalize their 2021 budget, I did talk with the commissioners yesterday at their meeting and requested if we could get an additional $11,000 added to the funds that we are already receiving to try to cover that gap. I think there's a lot of unknowns that are going to be happening, and as you know, the plus 60, plus 55 population is the most dramatically hit by this COVID crisis in terms of the most severe consequences for if you get the COVID. So our services are becoming more and more valuable. They were always important to the community, and now even more so because of the impact of how it affects this particular age group. We discontinued activities, just as a quick example, we discontinued activities on the 13th of March for the safety of those who attend the center. And we started a home delivery meal program on Monday, the 16th. Just over the weekend, we've not done that before, but we knew there was a need there. And on average, we made in-house about 650 meals a month. That's a loose average. And right now, last month we served just a hair under 1,200 meals. So we've almost doubled our meal production. The majority of those meals are either picked up or delivered at home. We have opened the center back up, but people are concerned, and so they're not coming in to the center to have their food. I think the most we had was 12 or 14 people that actually ate their lunch in the building. But the rest, all of those meals are delivered or picked up. So we are seeing this increasing need and a decrease in funding, which, seems to always be the way. But the transit will be cared for with the CARES Act grant, but it leaves us short for the other programs that we also provide there. So. Does anybody have any questions for me? I apologize for the lateness, but I don't know if anybody who's worked with NDOT grants or a government grant, sometimes they don't give you a lot of lead up in when they decide to make a change, so.
So the commissioners are requesting that we change our project, in our seated plan, that we change our project number 11121 from $40,000 to $51,000 to make this work. The commissioners all feel like eventually we're gonna be senior citizens anyway, so.
Eventually.
Someday.
How does that affect any plans that you had for anything ear tagged, Don? Is that?
None, because of the amount we still had left in the seeded fund. Not even hardly a blip, I don't think, on the radar.
So that's your commissioner's decision, we don't have anything to do with it anyway.
Other than approving the budget.
I think the appropriation part.
Well, I appreciate your coming to us, but it is your plan.
Yeah, thank you. We think it's pretty important.
Anybody see any issue with the increase in the request for seated?
Need a motion for approval?
I don't believe so. Do we need any kind of motion for approval? Or can we just incorporate that increase in our?
Just tell me to put it in the budget.
Yeah.
Don, is that a one-time, you think, approval on this?
It is for me. Sorry, Kim.
Fair enough.
Sorry, Kim. I don't know where that came from, but it's just.
It's kinda like aging, we're all gonna get there.
We're gonna get there someday. That's right. That's right. So I'm sorry. I can't tell. I can't really tell.
Would you like to have us approve it?
Well, I think it'd be nice to have approval. I think it's
But I
nice for
move we
the
approve
senior
it.
citizens to.
I'll make a motion, we approve their current
Gianna
seated
did just
plan.
let us know that it does not require a motion, that we can just let her know to approve the increase from 40,000 to 51, since this is for the 2021 budget. That's, I'm not even sure it's been advertised yet, has it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So it would just be,
This is just a go to it, we approve of it.
right,
'Cause
yeah. However, I do still have a motion. Do you feel strongly that we need to move through with
Yeah,
calling for a vote?
That's fine.
Okay. So I do have a motion to approve the increase. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I also have a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, and opposed the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks Don when he gets there.
Yeah. If Don remembers where it's at. Okay, so I know you guys have been asked for money for community corrections. The commissioners would like to bring this forward, see how you feel about it. We had put aside $200,000 to pay for security changes at the courthouse. It now appears that we're gonna get that money from the CARES Act. So we would like to, with your permission, shift that 200,000 towards community corrections.
Is that also part of the seated plan now?
Absolutely.
Is that 200,000 out of the seated plan?
Seated plan, yes, it's our on-site, off-site
Yeah, sort of.
plan that we had appropriated for the, security, but we don't need it now.
It's something we have to do, isn't it?
Security?
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually, it's gonna have to happen in this building too. Every building we have is gonna have to have some kind of security feature, so,
So I think it's kinda good that that's coming out of the seated plan and not out of the tax rate.
right.
No, that's coming from the CARES Act, right?
That's coming from
The
CARES Act.
security, you're replacing, you're getting money from the CARES Act, which is gonna free up these funds.
Free up these funds, right, right, so. So we just thought, it's up to you, but we thought if you could use that 200,000 towards community corrections, it was okay by us.
And that would be available for the 2021 budget? Or does
It
it
is
transfer
the
to 2020?
2021 seated plan.
Okay.
However, I'm guessing the funds are there in 2020. If you need them right away, I think we're fine there, so. Actually, if you look at the 2020 seated plan, it has the on-site, off-site, the same amount in it, so it could come from 2020 or 2021, whatever your choice is.
So are we sure that the CARES Act is gonna take care of the courthouse security?
George, can you help me on that one?
Yeah, we've been, to make sure, we sent it to the FSI to make sure that we were pre-approved, we got pre-approval for that. So, you know, we're just being very careful about what we're doing, but we do have that as part of our, CETA program. And, it's one thing that they will help us with. The way we approached that was we sent it to, the CARES Act, to the state, and just told them that it would reduce the contact between the security people and the people coming through, and then we're also gonna put a temperature control or a temperature reader in there to read temperatures. So they approved that. Really, we got that idea from the state. The representative from the state was in, and at one of our AIC meetings was talking about the courthouse security could be used for the CARES Act, because we have a $1.1 million that they've approved for Whitley County. Out of the 1.1 million, I think we can only come up with 50,000 that was CARE or COVID-19 related. And so we're thinking anything we can to be able to utilize those monies. And that's the courthouse security was one thing, and we've got other things we're working on right now, but that's where that's coming from.
So that's where we are.
Don, I heard you say that it's available in 2020, you believe.
Yes, I do believe so.
Is it available in 2020 and 2021, the 200,000? Based on the way you're budgeting?
I don't feel like making that commitment. You know what I'm saying? I certainly would commit 2020 funds, and George, I'm right, aren't I? Yeah. I certainly would commit to that. I don't feel comfortable committing to 2021 funds.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to say that, you know, what'll happen probably on that is the invoicing will be done at the end of the year, and we'll pay in 2021, actually pay in 2021.
That's true,
It has to be invoiced in 2020.
Yeah.
We can pay it in 2021.
We got till 12/31, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, George.
Do we need a motion or just general consensus?
I think just general consensus, since we're dealing with the 2021 budget still.
Yes or no?
I'll make a motion. We approve it. Or, I'm sorry, we're just doing.
Just doing consensus.
I approve.
Me too.
I consent.
I think we're all on the same page here, that we all think that's a good move. Now, how do we decide then what we'll do with these funds for community corrections? Will it just go into her budget? Then she can make an amendment to tell us how she wants to allocate the funds?
What was
I
her,
don't know if it would be a transfer, because she's asking for a lot of her funds to be paid out of county general.
Yeah.
A lot of her wages. So, I mean, depending on what the commissioners would like to do, she can transfer that amount into county general to cover, if you guys tell me to do that, to cover her wages.
so the seated money would be transferred to county general, and then she would appropriate more money from us from county general to cover her expenses.
Which I think is a good move. I'm concerned about her budget anyway.
Yeah, that's still not gonna cover the request, though.
No,
By the time you figure the lower percentage that's available.
yeah, it'll be a good boost though. Don, is there anything else?
There's not much else to tell you. We were out of here in about 25 minutes yesterday, so not a lot going,
Fast
not a lot
meeting.
going on.
Okay, well, since we're on that discussion already with the lit correctional facility, everybody should have gotten this form, lit correctional facility in bold letters on the top. So highlighted on this form for us is a section of the ordinance. If an ordinance is adopted after June 30th, 2019 to impose a tax rate under this section, not more than 20% of the revenues from the tax rate under this section may be used for operating expenses for correctional facilities and rehabilitation facilities in the county. So when we received the budget requests, we're asked by Community Corrections to fund salaries from lit. And I believe the sheriff also had a request from lit. I know that the commissioners have the request for $100,000 for the next 3 years to purchase the property. And frankly, there's not even enough money in the pool to pay for those three things, let alone the fact that it's all in addition, it's all well over 20%. So we'll have to figure out, before Jana advertises the budget, really how we want to, what changes we need to make, and if we need to cut anything or pull from other budgets so that we can still fund some of these requests for 2021.
Is buying the property considered an operational
I don't think so.
expense?
I think that's a capital
I
expense.
think that's a capital expense.
So that would,
I think you could cut that out, slice that out of it.
what was the amount that Community Corrections was requesting for the shortfall or to cover their budget?
Sorry, I'm trying to log into Gateway. I believe for the correctional facility, she was asking for around 708,000. And then in county general, I think it was 268,000. I'm trying to find my calculator. I can tell you exact numbers here in just a second.
What was the scope of the sheriff's request?
His is out of public safety. I do not believe he asked for anything out of this income tax. His is just public safety. They're two separate.
This is out of the lower.
That was my misunderstanding.
So yeah, for 2021, her initial request for county general was $268,292.05. And then I can find the lit here. the lit, it was $708,330 for 2021.
So even with $200,000 from the commissioners, that still leaves us at 776. It's a big number.
And if we did take the 20% that we're allowed out of the lit, that would be the 320,207 figure.
It would be the 355 from the 2020 distribution that would be carried at the end of the year towards that. Or has any of that money been used?
Well, you've already done 200,000 for her for this year. So I was showing you what the total that you could do for this year. You know, if she came back and asked for additional in 2020, and then I showed you what she could do in 2021. Yeah, you've already approved the 200,000 out of the lit for this year.
So we could do essentially 135,000 more out of this year's lit?
If she needs additional, yes. Out of this year.
So the issue is this, as I see it, what she's requesting is to cover salaries from the jail tax, from lit. In 2021, those positions are typically user fee and grant funded. Of course, there's not user fees when you can't have more than 20 people at community corrections right now. So I don't want to see anyone cut because we can't find the money. I'd like to figure out how to keep Whitley County employees employed. But I don't think that the jail tax or lit is the place to fund the salaries from, personally.
Where do you think we should find the money, or try and find the money?
That's a tough decision that we have to make. I'm not sure where it is.
The only really other option would be county general, wouldn't it?
And I don't think county general in 2021 can sustain that kind of hit.
Borrow the money.
I'm not.
We had to do that a few years ago on that transplant case.
Yeah.
Do that. That's bad.
Yeah, that's,
Oh,
in
yeah.
my
Oh,
opinion,
yeah.
I'm not in favor of borrowing money.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to be nice.
I'm in favor of living in our means, and, you know,
Is there any more out of the CETA, any place else we could pick some up at?
I don't know where it would be.
George?
On the seated plan on the back, you'll find what remaining funds that we have for the year. And it's substantial. I've been with commissioners, response to that. But it is an option, I would hope.
that would be the line total seated funds available.
Because we only use 75% of the funds every year, and we always encumber a lot of money. I think it was like almost 900,000 this year we didn't spend from last year.
Well, then let me ask again, why can't we encumber 200,000 from this year's seated budget that will not be spent for security, have it available next year?
We don't need it for security.
Right, so it won't be needed for security, so then we encumber it so that it is available next year, yes?
Because with an encumbrance, you're actually technically supposed to have an actual invoice. It's
You gotta
supposed to
have a
be.
you gotta have a contract
It's
to
supposed to
do
be
that.
something, yeah, it's supposed to be something that was incurred or, expensed in 2020, but wasn't billed until 2021.
So
That's the
then,
only way you could
rather than
encumber anything is
encumber it, it would
to
just
have
be
a
carried
contract.
over in the budget.
Mhm.
And then we
Cash
would,
balance
and then we would request it out of the balance that was carried. So I'm getting back to the 200,000 from 20 and 200,000 from 2021 based on the budget, because that 200,000 that will not be spent for courthouse security is in both years' budgets, correct?
Yep.
So that's $200,000 that's not being spent twice. That make any sense, or am I
Yeah.
off base?
I don't think it's in our 2020 budget.
Okay.
It's
Well,
our
there's-
2021 budget.
The seeded funds clearly show that there's a lot more money than just the $200,000 that would be available. I think this is needs to be a short-sighted conversation. What we can do to keep the employees and the programs in place that we've got now, so we don't go backwards on having to build that back up a year from now if user fees go back up. I think it would be responsible of us as a council to try to figure out how to come up with the funds to make that work this year, but then having to make some real tough decisions next year if the user fees don't come back into play to support it. I don't think we're gonna be able to do it again.
Yeah.
So if there's some way that we can work out a plan that we can get more money out of those seeded funds on a one-time outlook here, I think that we need to explore that with the understanding that that's not gonna be the expectation moving forward.
I totally agree. I think COVID is a temporary problem. I think we're gonna get past it. So, like I said when I first started talking, I don't wanna see anybody get cut. I wanna see the programs and the people continue.
Now, this turns around, then we gotta rebuild all that, and then we're working to get back where we were, rather than just trying to maintain where we are right now.
I'd hate to see it be taken out of county general, because that's the only place we've got to help our employees as far as salaries or anything like that. I'd rather see it come out of CETA if it's all possible. If we're looking at a one-time deal, and then we look at it next year, and
I think we have to look at it as a one-time deal for this year. I mean, that's my opinion, and we can't make a plan that we're going to support it that way every year. It has to come back into supporting itself with the user fees, otherwise there's gonna have to be programs phased out.
George?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I guess one thing that we need to consider here too is if you talk to Paul, the budget that she's presented to us is worst case scenario, that if this COVID-19 keeps going. So, I don't know, we've got a plan ahead, yes, but I'm not sure that it's gonna be as bad as what it looks in the budget, but she had to budget that just to make sure that she was covered.
How do other council members feel about part of it coming from seated and a portion coming from below it, or the lit for correctional?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would recommend, is dropping the request down to 20% from the 708,330, drop that down to 20% of what's, so that we're in compliance with the rule of 20%. And then the remainder, be taken from seated. That would be my recommendation.
And I would like to ask the commissioners to do that. Will that in any way deter the process that you are planning for the preparation of a new facility?
Yeah, I get it.
If we were to take 320,000 out of the lit?
Sure, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
It would have an effect, but
But will it
We
slow
need to-
your
We need to make sure we
expenditures?
got our ducks in a row, but first, maybe taking care of community corrections is probably the first thing we need to do.
We still have to have the programs before a new
We need the
facility
facility.
or the
Yeah.
purchase of land to consider a new facility would even be relevant.
I've heard a lot of numbers, and so I'm kind of mixed up. Can anybody tell me then how much you would like to come out of seeded?
Well, it looks like probably about $776,000. $622.05.
That's not including the 200,000 we just,
Correct.
so it's over $1 million, or almost $1 million.
It would be minus this 320,270, right? Because this 20% can be used, so we would just need to subtract this number from that 770,000 or 708,000.
And then there's the 268,000.
I did actually end up putting everything in to Gateway this way. So if you guys did like a 1% increase, this includes that, it would be forward release $671,266 that we would need in county general that lit could not cover.
What was it?
$671,266, but that's with a 1% increase. And yeah, if employees did receive increases, she asked for those to be paid out of county general as well. So I added that in, so that's the number that I have. So it'd be less if we gave no increases, obviously, but that would be with a 1% increase with what she couldn't cover out of the lit, plus what she was already asking out of the county general, which was like 268,000.
So probably roughly someplace between 660 and 671,000, depending on what council does as far as increases for next year. With 671,266 being the max.
And is that before we take the 200,000 from?
That's pretty much taking what she asked for the lit, cutting, it's essentially cutting it in half because that's about half. Putting the 320 in there, and then taking whatever was left out of that, of the 700 and whatever, adding that in here, plus the 286,000 she asked out of county general originally, plus a 1% increase is that number.
So then we could deduct the 200,000 that we just transferred from, or that we're going to transfer from seeded out of that number, correct?
Well, it's just all seeded, right? That's coming out of seeded, but we're just talking about the additional that would come out of seeded, and the total would be the 671, instead of breaking it into the 200 and the 471, right?
Yeah.
So that's, okay.
You didn't take the 200 out of here yet.
No, I did not.
I think that's the question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that would
it's
be
all
the total,
seeded
that would
funds.
be the total appropriation. That would be the number that would
Right.
need appropriated. So yes, I'm not saying where the revenue, the two, yeah.
So without that 1%, what I came up with is if you take that request for 708,330 and you subtract the 20% at 320,270 and then add the 200,000 that the commissioners so generously gave us because they don't need it for the security project, then that would be $588,060.
Of what you need.
Right. Does that make sense to everyone? It's a little bit more simplified.
Can you give that number again, 500?
Yeah, so I'm coming up with $588,060. And the way that I got there was in the 2021 distribution of the lit, 20% of that will be 320,270. So I just simply subtracted that from the request from community corrections, from lit, that 708,330. So then the remainder was $388,060. I added the 200,000 that we received from the commissioners this morning, that they no longer need for their security project, and came up with a total of $588,060.
Are we looking to make a decision on the final financial number this morning, or are we just looking for the concept of an idea on where it's gonna come from, that these numbers can be thoroughly
Well, I think
vetted
we just
make
have to
sure?
tell Jana, because she's about to advertise our budget. We have to tell Jana what it is that we want. So I think we can simply say we need this money to be transferred from CEDAT to the county general so that there can be a request. Is this correct, Jana? Am I saying this right?
Yeah, because
Because salaries can't be paid from CEDAT. So those CEDAT dollars have to be transferred to county general, which then has to be allocated to community corrections.
But are we gonna, is there any more that we can get out of CEDA? If she's gonna advertise, we might as well figure out if there's more there than just the 200,000.
Yeah. Which the number that you provided was higher than the number that I came up with anyway.
And can we make that decision without the commissioners meeting first to make that decision, then for us to approve?
It'd be appreciated.
Yeah. I'm sure, it would, but we'll give a favorable recommendation if it, I mean, so you guys would have no understanding that. But we can't make that decision until you guys have a meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, no,
Yes,
really?
please, George, go ahead.
I'd like to ask that the commissioner would be able to meet about this, but, and also with Paula, because I think part of the problem here is she couldn't budget granted money in her budget this year either. I mean, grants may come through, but she could not put that into the budget. And so that, it creates a lot of problems here on this, that we need to maybe sit down and look at all the figures. And the commissioners, Don, is that?
Yeah, I think what we've been talking is like worst case scenarios, so I think we need a little time to massage this thing out, okay? Obviously, we wanna help, but I don't wanna be the guy who said, well, he left and flushed the CETA plan down the drain, so, but, cause I think there are other options for her, we just haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk with her, so I like George's idea, just give us some time if you would.
Do the commissioners have any idea when Paula will get grant information returned from the state?
I'm sorry, I really don't know, but it didn't come in time for the budget is all I do know.
So, Jana, you can advertise the highest possible amount that we could budget, and we can always reduce that when that actually happens, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So this is essentially for her to be able to budget, or for her to be able to advertise.
I need to know how you guys want me to advertise it.
Well, I think I don't wanna speak for the rest of the council. For myself, I'm in favor of advertising at max and working within that.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah. I would be in favor of the max based on the requests.
Yeah.
And then we reduce from there, but there we have the leeway then.
Right.
I agree with that.
But you guys are okay with me advertising with, the amount in county general? I mean, that's the way you wanna put what she's
Yes.
asking for me to put in county general, and then whatever I can inlet, and that's the way you want it.
Because it would
Yes.
have to be
Okay.
transferred
Okay.
from CEDAT to county general anyway, right?
Correct.
And that's the way I have it, I just wanted to make sure that that's the way you guys want me to advertise it.
Yes. Jana, you provided us with some other information this morning. Do you wanna talk about this?
Yeah. So,
Is that what the commissioners have?
So this is the information for the county general budget. I gave you guys the entire amount for a 1% increase and a 3% increase. It shows below the 1% consists of the 1% increase, no judge's supplement, and no additional prosecuting attorney, because those were the three things you guys were questioning and told me to take out. The 3% does include the judge's supplement and the additional prosecuting attorney, so that's why it's a little more. Then I also gave the 1% increase, what it would normally be, like if it went back to normal, not including work release. And then a 3% not including work release as well. For 2020, the green blocks, I put our miscellaneous revenue is estimated to be about $6 million for next year. The tax levy, which you will see on the next page, I'll explain that a little more. The state estimate that they sent out was $7,348,941. When I talked to our DLGF representative, he said that to be more conservative, and said that was most likely very high. He said try to use the $6,698,143. And as you can see on the last page, that's where I took from his email that he said would be what his estimate that he would use. And then I broke. That's the max amount we can collect in taxes, and they're distributed between those funds that you see there on the second page. And I just used mostly the numbers that we used for this year. And then I gave the yellow is the current cash balance of county general as of, I believe, June 30th. And then the total 2020 budget appropriation was $12,559,410.52. And then after the blue at the bottom gives you the estimated 2021 cash balance. The way if you had adopted it, the 1% or the 3%, and then including work release and not including work release. Those are the estimated figures using Gateway at the end of 2021.
Any questions on that? I appreciate you putting that together. Any thoughts on the 1% versus 3% increase?
I think she should advertise it for 3%. By next month, we should have Social Security estimates for COLA, what it should actually be.
I agree. Do you want to hit on this too?
Oh, yes. And then the other thing that I provided to you, because I know you guys had mentioned that you wanted to handle this separately, is the elected official salaries. I put the chief deputy salary for 2021, the 1% increase that would be for them, and then the chief deputy's 2021 salary, and then 85% would be the final column. And then I try to think of everything, but of course, I can't think of everything sometimes. I did not put what our current salary is for this year, but if you guys want those numbers, I can give them to you right now, or I can send them to you in an email. But it looks like for all of us, it would be around a $1,900 increase.
And we have it. I mean, to your point earlier, we do already have that information in our book.
Yep.
I had just recommended to Jana that it would be nice when we're given a site picture like this to include a column with what the current is for those positions.
It would be nice just to have that emailed
Yeah,
with that extra line in the chart.
Okay.
yeah, can you do that for us? Thank you. I don't want to rush us through, but is there any other discussion on these forms? The last item on the agenda is our last month's meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review?
I'll make a motion to accept them as they were presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, and oppose the same. Is there anything that anyone in the audience would like to add? Any comments? Yes, Mary.
Well, I have the reports if you want them, and I can get
Great.
them to you at the end of the meeting.
Perfect, thank you. George?
Just real quick, like, I asked that the council would consider maybe as far as the tax abatements, maybe a look-back period of 3 years, something like that, when considering that, because it seems to me like when a company has bad years, then we kick them, and you know, we penalize them for having a bad year. So I would ask that maybe you look at something like that rather than, you know, the year that they're having a bad year, cut their tax rate.
Yeah, and to be fair, we didn't, we approved them. I signed the forms except for one, and Dale had told us that it had been several years that they had been out of compliance, so no one got kicked. They had to see it coming.
Yeah.
If it was several years that they were out of compliance, then I'm sorry,
Well,
but,
I agree, that's why I think maybe a look-back period is
yeah.
great.
And at this point, all the Form 1s have been signed excluding one organization. And also, I do have this stack that I'll be reviewing today that came in late, but I appreciate that, George. Anyone else? Laurel, please.
Yes, last month, Jan and I talked about the LOW program for our new tax system. And, I guess nothing was really decided, but I would like to let you know that our 1998 Ford broke down yet again this last month. And we fixed a condenser and a flat tire, and it's just nickel and diming us to death. And our IT person is kinda tired of jumping in and helping when it's not his responsibility. And I just would like for the council to consider this purchase for next year.
It's already in the budget, right? It's already.
I did not put it in the budget.
It's not.
Yeah, because I didn't know where you guys wanted. I mean, it can come out of county general, it can come out of my budget, or it could come from CUMCAP. Right, stuff came out of CUMCAP when we did that first.
What is that total amount?
The total project cost initial is $172,542. But that's gonna fluctuate just a little bit because he quoted us at having previous 6 years, but I think Laurel and I are both okay with having 3. So take 22,500 off of that.
Are you gonna put it in the budget, or are we just gonna try and get it somewhere else?
Well, I would like some direction from you guys. Do you want me to put it in county general, or do you guys want to put it in CUMCAP? Do you want me to advertise it at all? What would you like me to do?
Well, that's not what CUMCAP's really for.
What's that, Kim?
That's not what CUMCAP's really for.
Okay.
Got in the rainy day fund. Just out of curiosity.
As of today, $66,500.
What was those figures?
The total project cost is $172,542. But if you take the 22,500 off there, because we're only doing 3 years instead of 6 years of history, it's $150,042.
And the rainy day was 65,000 maybe?
66.
66,000. I'm not sure that I'd be in favor of pulling from a rainy day. The county general this year could sustain that hit.
That's this year rather than next year.
So Jana does need to know, she needs some guidance whether or not we wanna include this in our 2021 budget, or how we'd like to move forward.
I would prefer to see that we fund it one way or another in 2020, rather than adding it to the budget.
Can we let it ride until the end of the year and then encumber it with a invoice if we move forward with it? Can you do that? And
Yes.
Does this need to be in place before the fiscal year starts? No.
No, it's as I understood it, they would put it in place in 2020, and then we would be trained on it, but it wouldn't go live until we would decide, which could be in January. And so I think January, February is the tax season slow period, so I would say that would definitely be the time, December, January, February. Now is the time, I mean, we need to have direction now, because this is gonna take them a little while to set up and download all the history.
Have we, say that again?
On the total that he gave, if we signed the commitment by September 1st, they give us a $20,000 discount. So.
And Jana just did let me know that if we signed an agreement by September 1st, there would be an additional $20,000 discount.
That we would lose if we signed.
Yeah, if we wait until after September, then we would lose that 20% discount. Have we talked to any other counties who are using this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And everyone's satisfied.
Yeah.
And
we use them right now for our financial system. And it's, for service, they just couldn't be any more helpful, and we get answers in an hour or two, versus the company that we are using now for the tax system. If we get an answer in 24 or 48 hours and they're grumpy, it's always our fault, and it's not. It's just.
Well, and Mr. Chair, I have observed the necessity of doing handwork between the assessor and auditor. That reportedly the new software will integrate those two items, but they're literally going through books by hand to be able to know what the total assessment would be. And I guess I would ask if this is a long-term piece of software, why is it not possible that it would be a capital expense? Because it's infrastructure that would be used for an extended period of time.
Mr. Chair, I apologize, but I need to go, if I could be excused, please.
Sure. Yep.
And I would be in favor of funding this project if you're looking for a general consensus, but
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. So there is an annual fee as well. Laurel, do you feel that your department could share in the expense for the annual maintenance fee with the auditor's office?
With my, I mean, if we could be granted some additional monies, I mean, I have no.
There's nothing in your budget right now that would,
Nothing. Copies and.
that annual maintenance costs right now is $51,996. Of course, there could be an increase. They could come back to us in a year and say, actually, our annual maintenance is gonna be $65,000.
Yeah, he did give for the next 3 years.
So they're committing to that annual maintenance for a 3-year period, which at the end of the 3 years, then there could be an increase in their annual maintenance.
But you said you've looked at other programs and they all probably have a maintenance.
Well, we're currently paying the maintenance.
Okay, so
for-
every
for our
company's gonna
program.
have a maintenance program. Just-
Right.
And if it ties in with what the auditor's using now, I would think that would be where you wanna go. You know, if they're gonna talk back and forth, I call it talk back and forth, whatever.
Yeah.
And what years you say the one you have now is?
1998.
Yeah, I think it's probably time for an update.
It's the same product that we bought in '98. There's been updates.
But, yeah.
But, yeah. So it is gonna be a long-term product.
Right, yeah, you're not gonna use it a year or two, then throw it
No,
away and get
no,
something else.
This is not
So,
something
okay.
that's easy to do.
Yeah.
And this would completely replace what's currently being used. We would no longer have a use for the current program.
That is right.
Just for
Oth-
history.
Other than history.
And would we have to continue to pay an annual maintenance to obtain the history?
This software is so important because it's what creates the tax bills. It's the software we use, when the assessor rolls values to me and I import the values all to, to get our assessed value. It's very important, and when it doesn't work, when I have to go through 253 pages parcel by parcel because they can't just run a report and tell me what's wrong and why it's not importing, that takes time away from me doing other things that I need to be getting done that a software should just be able to tell you. And I spent 2 days trying to find that parcel that was off because our software company couldn't tell me and couldn't help me. And I know they would be able to run a report and tell me, okay, this is the issue. So it's very important, and when it doesn't go well and when you don't have the support, it is awful.
Don, do you have, commissioners have any source of funding in this year's commissioner's budget that could at least sustain part of this? No?
And you hit me cold, I'm sorry. I'd have to review it.
I would say that I think, again, our 2020 county general budget could sustain this. Can you pull that?
The cash balance. Do you wanna-
Well, what's available, not committed.
Where's the maintenance fee gonna come?
Well, it's my understanding that this is going to completely replace a system that's currently being used that also has a maintenance fee. So I think that the auditor's office and the clerk's office, or I'm sorry, the treasurer's office can share this, and a portion of it will be a maintenance fee to a program that's in their budget that will no longer be used after 2020. So right there's a good head start. I don't know what the current maintenance fee is for the program that's currently in use. Do you, Laurel?
Janet has this figure, but I think it's
About
It
half.
is about half.
So it's a good start.
Oh, yeah.
The assessor's office could also help sustain part of
That's
those
what I was
fees.
thinking too. This is.
They may be able to do something out of user fees.
Yeah, if this has to do with assessed values, then the assessor's office should be right in there with them.
Will they use part of it then too?
I don't believe so. I think she has her own program that puts the assessed values in, and then her program talks to this program and integrates all the information. So So I don't think, I think the assessor has her own program, she was not use this.
Projected ending 2020 balance is 1,767,578. And I know for a fact that's gonna be a lot more than that because for one, the commissioners have taken 3 payments, right, correct, to the health fund?
Yes.
3 payments out of the trust funds, that's probably about 300,000 or more right there, that we haven't taken out of the commissioner's budget. And then, there's been some positions that haven't been filled, so there's been a gap there, so there's gonna be funds there's gonna be a lot of unused funds this year in 2020, I believe. We're gonna carry over a lot more than we were predicting. Because you gotta think, we're not going to conferences, it's all virtual, and that you don't have that hotel stay, you don't have that mileage anymore this year. So I think we're gonna have a lot bigger carryover than we think.
So in summary, the recommendation is take it out of the general budget for the funding.
That would be my recommendation. I feel that it's important enough that we do it, and my recommendation would be that we fund it from the 2020 county general.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would amend it that it be accomplished before September 1st so that we receive this additional discount.
I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, and oppose the same. That's a 6-0.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll move forward with that. Councilman Barrett, anything to add?
Got Wagner in the back there, if he had any updates with COVID.
That's on here for me. Current numbers of the county are approximately 160 positives. The normal rise, we haven't seen any surges or anything like that, in spite of what any news outlets might say. I think we have a state website, and so the state website isn't always up to date or on time. So if you see a jump in a week or something, that might just because they haven't imported that data, doesn't mean that we've seen a spike in cases. Again, we're still very consistent in having about 93% of our people test positive, having very mild, if no symptoms at all. We have seen a little bit of an increase in older individuals coming positive with that. Haven't seen a whole lot of hospitalizations with that. We have maybe 2 or 3 people right now hospitalized with that. Makes you a little nervous when they're older like that. As far as testing, preliminarily partnering with another county to do that, offer county residents free testing. That's in the works right now. Otherwise, we're trying to keep up. We've had a limited number of complaints about masking. I refer people to the governor's directive so that they can read it. I usually send them a copy of that specifically. There's a lot of misinformation on mask wearing for what the governor's asking. But typically it's about individuals and businesses. Any other questions about anything specific you'd like to know?
Councilman Overdeer?
Nope.
Councilman Comfer?
I just think that we should acknowledge the commissioner's hire of a new HR director.
Absolutely.
Jennifer.
Congratulations.
So.
Councilman Warner, Councilman, what's your last name again?
It don't matter. Don, I have a question for you. Maybe I overlooked it or didn't get a reply or something. The courthouse repair, I seen there was an additional cost on the slate up on top.
So that.
How's that being funded? Or is there a go-ahead with it, or?
Yeah, he came to us because they're here and they have the lift. It was most economical to do it now. Do you remember where the funding was from, George?
Well, I don't right now. We considered it really an emergency repair at that
We
point.
did.
Because the slate's falling down, and if it falls down, if anybody's underneath. But it was actually loose.
I just wondered if you was looking at cum cap for that to be paid out of?
Probably would be the best place for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, if you ever get a figure on it, could you email it to me? Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
But didn't we get an email, wasn't that additional 18,000 for that repair? Is that right? Okay, maybe it was, but didn't we get an email? I thought we got
I
an
was
email.
thinking it went from 99 to
100.
20,000. So I was thinking,
Yeah,
I just love since
Did
they
we
have a
get,
little bit.
was that what it was?
There was a sheet,
Yeah.
an additional sheet that was there on the email.
yeah, okay.
Okay, that's one question I had.
All right. Well, thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.